I just want to focus on the latest about Modi being able to form this coalition government. What comes next with this coalition? And certainly, can they adhere to some of these economic policies of a manufacturing boom, a infrastructure upgrade like Modi had promised?
Well, what comes next is as far as we can see, is a lot of compromises that Prime Minister Modi will have to make in this term. It's not, a simple majority that he has got, and therefore he needs the support of the alliance partners to survive. The life of his government depends on the pleasure of his partners. Mind you, there are not many partners in Indian politics today who want to team up with Prime Minister Modi. So it will be difficult if he has to go, shopping for allies, shopping for members in the parliament. That's one. Therefore, what we can expect very clearly, controversial issues, social issues in particular, controversial economic issues in particular, the allies may not want him to go through with it, and therefore that compromise will come. Now, what are the controversial issues socially? Of course, India is trying to bring in uniform code for inheritance, because in India the inheritance code or the inheritance laws are largely on the religious lines to accommodate minorities. The BJP has been saying they wanted to remove that. It's unlikely that he'll be able to push through that. Similarly, other mapping of the population, which many in the opposition feel is going to discriminate against the minority, that may not go. So on that, those are on the social front. If you look at the economic front, land reforms is something that is unlikely, again, because Prime Minister Modi tried it once, and when his popularity was at its peak, but even then he could not get the states to kind of agree to those kind of reforms. Labor reforms is something that is again going to perhaps not be palatable, or in the manner that the government wants to do it. They may have to compromise on that. So what we can clearly say that in the next, however long the government lasts, there will be series of compromises that we will see from the Prime Minister and his government.
And that takes us perfectly, Sudhi, into the big take today. Fantastic work, by the way, to you and the rest there for putting this together. It's a reminder, I guess, some of the things that they weren't able to achieve the second time around. It's a reminder that there have been winners and losers, really, to this, right? They've created a billionaire elite. To some extent, there's been a massive group of people that have been left behind. And I'm wondering, is there something that is achievable from Modi's perspective with the mandate that was given that allows them now to bridge that gap and reach out to the segment of the population that feel, rightly or wrongly, they've been left behind?
Well, yes, because both the coalition partners in the government that we see, have socialistic ideologies, socialistic backgrounds in their politics, and therefore the pressure or the compulsion would be on the government would be to increase the welfare net. Now, increasing the welfare net is likely to immediately impact government spending. Already, India has the world's largest free food program. About 800 million people kind of dependent on the free grains that the government gives out. But at the same point of time, it seems that it's not just that wasn't enough, because when we were out in the field, my colleagues were out in the field, one of the things that kept coming back, yes, free grains, fine, but what about other stuff, other important stuff, like like fuel, like edible oil, everything going through the roof, and there are no jobs that are there. So while the Prime Minister is trying to kind of push and take advantage of the US-China freeze and attract more manufacturing, more capital into India to manufacture and therefore generate jobs, that generation of jobs is another thing that Modi 3.0 is something which will bother them.
And you mentioned about this sort of Hindu nationalistic sort of agenda that he campaigned on, which in some ways, he's called himself an avatar of God, displaying some, unstatesmanlike sort of behavior that did alienate some of these voters out there. How do you think he's going to have to govern moving forward now?
Well, for one, we know in the last 10 years, the Prime Minister is a good communicator, great communicator, and he has got a connect with people. He still remains one of the most popular leaders that India has said. Many people still, despite the election results, still say that perhaps he's the best that India has. How does he recover? I don't see a need for him to recover. I mean, people over time will forget and things will move on. So, I mean, what we can see from the ground is perhaps that's not going to be a major embarrassment or a dent, and it'll be kind of taken as a political rhetoric during election time. So people will tend to ignore, unless and until, of course, we see more of these remarks and more, in a coalition government, Prime Minister Modi trying to assert himself, which his coalition partners may or may not like. So that is the time when these issues will come up. But right now, doesn't seem that it will be an issue going forward.